and I'm going to grant permission to Westwood Media and anyone else who wishes to record the meeting. This meeting will be live streamed by Westwood Media Center. I'm going to hop right into the chair's update. Let me begin with pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, on May 29, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act making appropriations for the fiscal year 2023 to provide for supplemental certain existing appropriations and for certain other activities and projects. This act includes an extension until March 31st, 2025 of the remote meeting provisions. The September 30th, 2024 Select Board meeting will be conducted by remote participation by the board. The chair will grant permission, as I said earlier, to the Westwood Media channel. And with that, I'm going to launch into our first thing on the chair's update, which we have our Girl Scouts here. Let me start with Rebecca Lowney. Are you here, Rebecca? Hi, Rebecca. And then we also have Amy Barrett. Kudos to you too for being such terrific Scout leaders. This evening, we have the honor of recognizing 4 Westwood Girl Scouts who have earned the prestigious Girl Scout Gold Award. The Gold Award is the highest award the Girl Scout offers, and less than 5% of the Scouts achieve this honor. The 4 Girl Scouts who achieved this honor are Grace Barnett. Grace, can you wave your hand? Oh, you got your sash on. Excellent. Elizabeth Lowney. Elizabeth. Charlotte Scalaro. And who am I missing? Oh, Angela Holmesy. Amy, did I hit everybody?
You did. Angelina couldn't be here this evening, but yes.
Angelina Holmesy. Yep. Okay, great. So thank you so much for coming this evening. I have to tell you that this board, Rob, Mary, and I, we love recognizing the Scouts. And kudos to you and to Rebecca, I'm sorry, to Amy for hanging in there, for being Scout leaders. It's an admirable role that you play, and it's an important role that you play, and we're just thrilled to have you come before us this evening. I have a nice little script here, but I'm going to I'd like to ask the Scouts themselves to tell us a little bit. Grace, where's Grace? Grace, oh, you have the sash. Great. Okay. Grace, you did Scribe, students connecting remotely with the interest of better expression. You're a senior at Westwood High School, and you had concerns over incivility and public discourse. Grace, you have the most captive audience tonight with the select board and some of the others here this evening discussing this. Can you tell us a little bit about your project for the Gold Award?
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for having us. For my project, I was concerned about the fact that I feel like people across the country aren't super willing to listen to one another and have productive conversation and come into conversation with an open mind. So I learned about the concept of connective democracy, which is the idea that people will have more productive discussion if they first connect based on a shared interest. And so I wanted to build on that idea by creating a virtual young writers workshop to connect students from different regions of the country to just connect with one another through an interest in writing, and not like discuss controversial topics, but just hopefully build that baseline acceptance of one another and kind of learn what similarities we have with one another. So the program started out pretty small. We had writers in Massachusetts and in North Carolina, but I'm hoping to grow it this year.
Well, this is kudos to you. That's a great explanation, and thank you so much for telling us about your project. You also had assistance from Mr. Gavin Bresky from Westwood High School, is that correct?
Yes, I did. Yes, Mr. Bresky was incredibly supportive, and I really appreciate all of his help.
That's great. And Yi Yang of Sawanee Young Writers Conference, is that true as well?
Yes, yes, yes.
Excellent.
So, a huge support, and I really appreciate her working with me on this.
That's great. Thank you, Grace. And next we have Elizabeth Lowney. Was it Elizabeth? Is that you wearing 25? Excellent. Elizabeth, you're a junior at Westwood High. And for your gold award, you took the love of STEM and Girl Scouts to create Spring into STEM. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please, Elizabeth?
Yes. So for my Girl Scout Gold Award, I created a program entitled Spring into STEM, which was 3 separate workshops on 3 different days where we reached over 100 Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in Westwood. And I did this in collaboration with the Westwood High School robotics team, in order to show the younger generation how they can become more involved in STEM in high school and beyond, and especially the girls in Westwood that women do belong in STEM and have a place in STEM.
Excellent. And next we have Charlotte Scalaro. Is Charlotte, there you are. Okay, great. Charlotte, wow, you did something on composting, which is at the forefront today. And for your gold project, you tried to reach students and families in Westwood High to develop a curriculum on how and why we should compost, including video instructions, impressive, which you presented through multiple sessions to approximately 100 students, grades 3 through 5. Tell us how that went, Charlotte.
So for my gold award, I spread an initiative about composting, and my main idea was spreading it through the school systems. Although I know with like the superintendent that was kind of hard, so I decided to just spread awareness through the younger kids. And I made curriculum for the classrooms, and during their lunch blocks, they had the option to come, and I've reached over 100 students, and I just went over like the importance of composting, what composting is, and how they can do it at home. And I sent home flyers with the kids, teaching them and their parents and their families how they can start composting at their own houses. And outside of the school system, I also wrote multiple articles for Hometown Weekly and Westwood Living to reach a broader audience.
Excellent. Not present tonight is Angela Holmesy. She, for her gold project, she did the kitchen garden. Angelina's project inspired by her interaction with her grandmother, which is very touching, focused on the challenges that food pantries face. She recognized the nutritional importance of fresh produce. Angelina, Westwood High Senior, created nearly 100 home garden kits to grow tomatoes, basil home gardens with instructions on how to nurture these plants and come up with some fresh plants for the table. So Angelina, thank you very much. I have to tell you, as an Eagle Scout, and I see now in scouting that there's more Boy Scouts and Girl Scout activities coming together, which I think is terrific. And I forget who it was. Was it maybe it was Grace? Did you incorporate the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts into this? Who was it that incorporated? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. That was a great idea. And I also like to look up past recipients of the Gold Award or Scouting, Girl Scouting members. And I came across a line by Hillary Clinton. And she said, it not only taught me great songs that I still sing, but lifelong lessons about leadership and the value of public service and friendship. And all of you have demonstrated a keen sense of leadership, and you're all very, very well spoken. This is an extraordinary accomplishment. Congratulations to all of you, and to your parents as well, and to your Scout leaders. And thank you for joining us so much tonight. Mary Ann, would you like to say anything?
Oh, I would, Joe. Thank you. Grace, Elizabeth, and Charlotte, and in absentia, Angelina, congratulations. I am so impressed by your outstanding and creative work, and we are so proud of you and wish you continued success on your path as future leaders. Well done.
And Rob, would you like to say a few words or?
I would, Joe. Thank you. And
Great.
I would just like to echo all of the congratulations that have been offered thus far, and build upon the commentary on leadership that Joe and Mary Ann were just talking about, because we should be proud of you as a community for the leadership that each of you demonstrated when you identified an opportunity for how to make this world a better place and our interaction as a community in it. So well done, all of you. Well done to the Scout leaders who helped you through this, and wishing you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Rob. So, Rebecca and Amy, and to all the Gold Award recipients, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing you as leaders in our community in the future. Thank you so much for coming and seeing us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
Good night. Next, we move to Westwood Day recap. Westwood Day was held September 21st, and Mother Nature was feeling a little festive that day. Residents braved the weather to run in the road race, attend the fun run, visit the vendor village, and listen to great entertainment samples, vast amount of food in the food court of Westwood Day. And Rob, I see your favorite vendor was there with a line. Our representative, Paul McMurtry, also attended and welcomed residents to the community event. Poet laureate Lynn Vitti and youth poet laureate Elizabeth Lowney recited original poems that were not to be missed. They were exceptional young woman. Also, the select board presented Miss Massachusetts Kirsten Corey with the proclamation to recognize her accomplishments, and we wish to welcome all the representatives of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts at the Miss America competition. Special shout out to our sponsors that made Westwood Day special. Our platinum sponsor, New Car Family Dealerships. Gold sponsors, Private Oil. Again, Private Oil's been a great supporter. United Rentals, and then Wegmans. Wegmans does so much for our community. They're to be commended. Silver sponsors would be Dedham Savings, again, another big sponsor for events in Westwood. Embrace Home Care Health Services, Fox Hill Village, Needham Bank, Roach Brothers, all came through. Rockland Trust, University Station, Xaverian Brothers High School, and our bronze sponsors were Arch Orthodontics, Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, I believe that's of Needham, Dental Arts of Westwood, and Dunkin' Donuts, all of them. And we also have FM Generator, Mass General Brigham, Neroli Mercado and Restaurante, Northeast Security, Poria Sales and Service, Westwood Chinese School, Westwood Dentistry. Thank you to the Rec Commission members, town staff, DPW, crew, school staff, and many other volunteers who dedicated their time and energy to this day. Finally, to the Rec Department staff, took months of hard work, organization, and planning to pull this community event, and your hard work showed on September 21st. Well done, Rich, Sue, Joe, Carrie, Holly, Brian, Sarah, Kara, and Angela, and Rich. You always had a smile on your face no matter how hard the rain was coming down. So kudos to you and your team, and thank you so much for a great Westwood Day. Rob or Marion, do you folks have anything to say, follow up to that, or are we good?
Just expressing my thanks to the rec team as well for a job well done.
And
Same, Brett. Can't express enough thanks to all of those folks who work so hard despite the rain.
I agree with both of you. And I could not, Chris had to chase me out of the hot shower when I came home because boy, it was mighty good after being out in that rain. But it was a great time and great food and we always enjoy it. So thank you so much to all who helped put that together. The next thing I would like to mention on my update is the Fire Station 1 update. The firehouse has an open house on October 19th. Generally, this coincides with our Fire Prevention Week, and this year's campaign for Fire Prevention Week is smoke alarms. Make them work for you, and it's so important, especially this time of year. I always sent out an email to my staff about checking the batteries in your smoke detectors. Fire department always puts on a good show for the open house and encourage folks if they can attend that. I think you'll find it very worthwhile. They're excited to invite the community to an open house event at the main fire station on 637 High Street, Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We encourage residents to stop by the fire station on the 19th to view operations of the fire department, discuss critical needs of the 21st century fire department, understand the limitations of the current station facility, meet the firefighters, which the kids always enjoy, and the Westwood Fire Department is committed to providing the highest level of service to the community and looks forward to engaging the residents during this open house event. I strongly encourage folks to attend. It's a quick 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a quick visit, and I know the kids always enjoy it, and I always enjoy going over there as well. And that, I think, concludes my chair update, which brings us over to our town administrator, Chris Coleman, for his update. Chris, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one update that I want to share, and just a reminder to all residents regarding early voting. The town clerk has posted those dates and the times for the early voting. Early voting will begin on Saturday, October 19th, continue on Monday, October 21st, through Saturday, October 26th, and then continue again on Monday, October 28th through Friday, November 1st. There are different times, so I would certainly encourage people to visit the town's website for that information. And just as a reminder, the big election, state election will be Tuesday, November 5th.
Thank you, Chris. All right, let's move on to, we have a public hearing for Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza of Westwood, LLC, doing business as Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza, 119 University Ave, alcohol compliance check failure. Tish, do we have everybody here from Nora? Thanks. Good to see you. How about from the Anthony's folks?
I believe we have Christopher Dimmick, who is the manager, and Elizabeth Pisano representing.
They're both in.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to bring a motion to open the public hearing?
Please.
I hereby move that we open the public hearing regarding Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza of Westwood, LLC, DBA Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza, 119 University Avenue, regarding an alcohol compliance check failure.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Mary Ann, I'll do a roll call.
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Our presenter this evening is Nora Loughnane. Nora, please.
Thank you. So we're here tonight because there were recent compliance checks, and Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza was found to serve alcohol to a minor. These were standard compliance checks that were undertaken by the Westwood Police with the assistance of the Youth Explorers Program, and there was a police officer and the Explorers leader and two Explorer candidates who went around to all of the licensees in town and conducted the same type of compliance checks. In this case, for Anthony's, there was a gentleman under 21 years of age named Caleb, who took his instructions from the Explorer instructor, went into Anthony's and attempted to order an alcoholic beverage. He did so, and he was served a glass of sangria. And immediately upon receiving that, he texted to his Explorer representative, and the police officer who was in charge of the program came in and spoke to the manager of record, Christopher Dimmick, and to the server who had served the Explorer, Caleb, without asking for an ID. So he was between the ages of 18 and 21, did not have a valid ID, and was never asked to produce one. So we've asked Anthony's to come here tonight to speak to the select board about how they believe this violation occurred and what could be done differently in the future. I will point out this is the third violation that Anthony's has had since they've come to Westwood. The first one was in 2018, and the second one was about a year and a half ago in March of 2023. This most recent violation occurred on Monday, August 12th of this year, 2024. The Alcohol Review Committee met to review the circumstances, and they are recommending to the board that the board consider a more substantial penalty than was issued upon the second violation. Upon the second violation, the select board imposed a 3-day forfeiture of license, and they suspended 2 of those days and required 1 day to be served, with the 2 other days held in abeyance in the event that Anthony's had another violation within that 1-year period. Those 2 other days would have had to be served on the immediate Friday and Saturday following that additional violation. Well, this third violation occurred more than a year after the first, so the previous penalty has been fully served with just the 1 day. The Alcohol Review Committee is recommending that the select board consider additional steps of their choosing. At a minimum, the Alcohol Review Committee recommends that the select board impose a 2-day suspension this time, and have that served on some days other than Sunday and Monday, some other day of the week. And they're also recommending that the board consider requesting this period of service to take place before October 30th.
Thank you, Nora. Mary Ann, do you have any questions?
I do. Obviously, this is an issue that we take very, very seriously in terms of wanting our establishments in town to comply with the law, but more importantly, to protect our young people who are known to be more susceptible to the impact of alcohol. So this is troubling, and I'd like to hear, especially after the second violation in May of, which we discussed in May of 23, how did this happen, and what actions are being taken to ensure that it doesn't happen again?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Elizabeth Pisano. For the record, I'm Upton, Connell, and Devlin representing Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza tonight. Since the time of the incident, Anthony's Coal Fire has gone through some extensive steps to make sure this doesn't happen again and mitigate this from the future. This happened out of pure negligence of a server who was there on college break over the summer and working. And as much as the restaurant can train and hammer home the importance of safe service of alcohol, unfortunately, they can't actually physically take a card for every server. So it was just negligence on this server. She is no longer employed anyway because she's back to school, but she will not be welcomed back when she is on breaks. They do have a 0 tolerance policy, and unfortunately, it's just not going to work out that server anymore. But since that time of the incident, they have changed their policy to 100% carding. So it's no longer up to the discretion of the employee as to what they believe that patron's date of birth is or their age. Everyone is carded 100%. Some more extensive protocols they've done because this is the second violation within a year and a half. I know I was before you not too long ago, and unfortunately back here. Some of the things that I discussed with Anthony's Coal Fire and that they have agreed to do and have implemented. The first thing is they are in-person tips training next Saturday, October 5th, for every server and bartender to get recertified, no matter how recent they were certified, even if it was over the summer, if they're new employees and they got their tips training, every single bartender and server is required to attend this tips training in person at the restaurant next Saturday, October 5th. There is a tips trainer coming out and it'll be a full course and they will all have to take the exam right after. So it's not just them, you know, going online with it in the background of their home watching TV and then Googling the answers. They have to come in person, sit through this course, and take the exam. Another thing they have enrolled in is something called the BARS program. If you're unfamiliar with this, the BARS program is a third-party company that you can hire to conduct private compliance checks using of-age individuals who just look underage, to test the employee's adherence to the ID policies. So basically, you know, you can sign up for once a month, twice a month. It's up to the restaurant to decide how many times they want to do these compliance checks. But somebody will come out, they will be 21 years of age or older. They might just look like a younger person. And they'll come in, they'll sit down, they'll order a drink. If the server checks their ID and properly serves them, they'll get a green card after. If they don't check ID or they misread an ID and they, or well, actually it wouldn't have been misread, but if they do not ask for an ID like this happened in this situation, they'd get a red card. And after each compliance check, the BARS program will send an email to management, giving them an update on whether they passed or failed and a detailed report of which servers, what happened, so that they can track this as well and check up on their servers and bartenders before the police do or before another thing like this happens. So they are committed both financially and time-wise to making sure that all the bartenders and servers are doing their job. And this is one way that they can check in on them to make sure that things that they're doing and the things that they're implementing with their employees is working and what's not working and what they might need to, you know, work on with any specific bartender or server. So the BARS program is very, very well known in the restaurant industry, and it does really help to mitigate that. And it keeps every server and bartender on their toes, knowing that they're involved in this program now. You know, this could happen any day. It's gonna happen could happen multiple times a month. You don't know when it's gonna happen. So it keeps everybody on their toes, make sure everybody's doing their job correctly. So I think the BARS program is a great addition for Anthony's Coal Fire, to show their strong commitment and dedication to the safe service of alcohol in the Westwood community. Like I said, 100% carding no matter what. The management meetings are happening with individual team members very frequently, especially since this incident happened. The management discussed what had happened with every individual person, and they met with each one, went over what happened, and just reiterated the safe service of alcohol, what you need to do, why it's important, and really hammered home with each individual meeting with every single bartender and server to go over the policies. And they are also having their bartenders and servers read and sign acknowledgement forms before their shifts start to make sure they're reminded of what is being asked of them, what they're required to do when it comes to the safe service of alcohol. They're also going to increase the public facing signage regarding the ID procedures, as well as the POS systems, reminding them of what the ID should read for a date of birth. And then constant reminders around the service stations in the restaurant, employees only area, just bright red signs say, everyone must check an ID. This is what the date of birth must say. And just continuing the reminders of every single shift, every single server and bartender. And just the management is doing their best to make sure it is a constant reminder and constantly in their face. And that especially with this BARS program, they're going to be tested, and they don't know when, but they will be. And hopefully with the recertification and the in-person training, everyone is on a heightened awareness and really understands the importance of this all. So I think with all of these new policies in place, especially all at one time too, it shows that a major red flag that the restaurant is not messing around, and their employees need to take it seriously or they are not going to be able to work there. So I would request that the board and the alcohol compliance committee, I'm not sure if I said that name right, but the alcohol committee for Westwood do take these mitigating steps into consideration. And I'm hopeful that the board may see this as, good remedial steps for them and have some faith in them, and hopefully will have a little mercy and give us the same violation as last year, if possible, the 1-day suspension be held in abeyance. But again, that is up to the board, and we fully respect and take ownership and responsibility for the incident that happened, and we will obviously comply with anything that the board will issue us.
I also want to say I appreciate your opportunity to talk to you tonight about this. I realize the concern, and from the point of that incident, as the manager on duty, I took immediate steps to rectify the situation with my server, as far as sending her home right away and making sure that there was a proper write-up on her end. And there was a meeting that I did with my entire staff 3 weeks ago about this whole incident, and addressed my concerns with what happened and why it happened, and made sure that they were aware that we need every single aspect of IDing, understanding what different IDs, what they look like, making sure that they're checking dates, making sure that they're not counterfeit IDs. I went through the whole 9 yards with them on that. And then once we have our cert, then I made sure that I double checked everybody's tips training, and then we set up a tips training course. So in essence, I'm trying to mitigate any further incidents going forward. And with this BARS program, everybody's well aware that this could happen at any point, that somebody can come in and ask for a drink, and they have to ID them. So I drilled this into my staff so that they understand. And I want to make sure just so let all of you know on the board that there will be no further incidents going forward, because the fact that everybody realizes how serious this is.
Thank you, Chris. Elizabeth, that was a great explanation. A couple of thoughts. Sounds like this was a temp person that was working, a summer help person that was working. The same thing happens in the wintertime. I didn't hear what the process was to address this with the summer help and temp help.
It's going to be, Chris can chime in too, but with summer and winter help, regardless, any new employee that comes on has to go through a tips training process. They'll make sure that their qualifications are up to par and that they are fit for the job, first and foremost, that they've worked in a restaurant before and have experience with alcohol service. They will also be required to get their tips training certificate before their first shift starts. And Chris,
You just read my mind.
Yep.
I was going to say the same thing. Anybody who's hired on to be a server or a bartender, before the start of their first shift, they have to be certified and tips certified, and it's going to be made part of the orientation the process for me as well when I talk to them, so that they know they get the same training that we're getting on the 5th. I will be giving them that training as well during the orientation, so that they're well aware of the ramifications of not IDing and serving underage before they even hit the floor.
But Chris, isn't the TIPS training required for all your service?
Yes, but they don't start for they're on the floor. They have 30 days to get their TIP certification once they start. But I'm not and they're also in a 3-week training program, so they're not by themselves for 3 weeks. So I'm making it mandatory that they get their TIP certification before day one when they start, so they're well aware of all the laws and everything.
Okay, I'm going to apologize. I haven't been perfectly clear. Let me try this. And Elizabeth, just so you know where I'm coming from, I spent 30 years working in a trauma unit. I've seen what happens when people don't do their job. Chris, you've got to get your staff to do the job. I don't want to hear about 30 days or anything else. You need to impress upon them day one and get some sort of signed document that says, yes, I understand, I must check the license. I didn't hear that, Elizabeth.
Yes,
This has to be.
I understand that, and I apologize for not being crystal clear on that.
So
I
there's,
apologize.
Chris, I think your
There is a
phone might be a little echoey, so I apologize if everybody else is hearing that too. But what there is called, and I might have said this a little bit too quickly, is called an employee acknowledgement form. Before every shift starts, it's an acknowledgement form where the employees will read it and they'll sign off, and it'll say, this is what your job is. This is what an ID should say. Everybody gets IDs, 100% carding, no matter what age they look like. This is what the ID must read as a date of birth. And you're aware of, XYZ laws that you're supposed to be complying with for the safe service of alcohol. They will read that same sheet. Everybody will get that same sheet before every shift. They'll read it and they'll sign it. So they are going to be signing off an acknowledgement form, and we can make that so it's every single shift. If you're there 5 days a week, 7 days a week, you sign it 7 times. It can be a part of a protocol, that no matter how many days a week you're there, at the start of every shift, every server, every bartender reads and signs this acknowledgement form.
Thank you. Rob, you had a question.
Yeah, just a comment. I applaud the steps that you're taking going forward. I understand the pressure that is sometimes, to beat comp sales from the prior year. That is just an inherent part of the hospitality industry. Given that this has happened in such close proximity, it didn't happen within the 12-month window where we were holding the other 2 in advance. I am inclined to accept the recommendation of the Alcohol Review Committee and follow their recommendation of a 2-day suspension with a 3rd day held in abeyance. And if I heard Nora correctly earlier, the 2 days were not to be Sunday, Monday, but were to be some other days. Chris, I understand that you are impressing upon your staff the importance of this, but it is also important that there are penalties and that you feel those penalties. And so I know that not having the service of alcohol at any given night is going to impact your gross receipts, and it will also significantly impact the tips that the servers earn that particular night. And as such, I would recommend that we follow the recommendations of the Alcohol Review Committee.
Thank you, Rob. Marianne, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yes, thank you. Attorney Pisano, thank you for the thorough explanation, and Mr. Dimick as well. And I do note in the documentation we received from the police, Mr. Dimick, that you immediately took this matter very seriously. And obviously, this is a hard discussion for all of us tonight. One question I had, just to follow up, Attorney Pisano, regarding the bar program that Anthony's has subscribed to, how often will those checks be taking place?
So they just are in the initial phases of getting their contract underway. I'm not sure if the company has committed to how many times, but it can be a couple times a month, or as I believe it can be as frequent as they want it to be. We're open to any suggestions if you would like to see a compliance check happen 4 times a month. I know obviously each visit is, I believe it's based on, the cost is based on how many visits, but Anthony's Coal Fire is willing to invest the money in as many compliance checks as the board seems necessary. So we would definitely take your suggestions. We can keep you updated on what their agreement does say and how many times it will be coming. If that makes you more comfortable as well, we can certainly share that information with you. I don't know if they have set it in stone yet. I don't believe they have as of Friday. They were still working out the details with one of the representatives from the bars company. But I'm sure we can get that solidified this week and get you all the details on how many times it'll happen.
Thank you. I would certainly think, as the new program is getting up and running, that it would be beneficial to have checks being done several times a month to make
Yes.
sure that the staff is being properly educated and is getting the message.
Yes.
I would certainly feel more comfortable. And I am also comfortable with the penalty that the Alcohol Review Committee has suggested. If there's no further discussion, Joe, I'm happy to make a motion, but don't want to foreclose any further discussion.
I just had one comment. Nora, is there any chance the Alcohol Review Committee could take a look at this proposal, this contract that Elizabeth is discussing and offer your opinions on that to get some input from the town on it?
Sure, we'd be happy to do that. One suggestion that comes to mind, you might add a line to that, informing your employees and having them acknowledge that the service of alcohol to an underage individual in Massachusetts is a criminal offense and could be prosecuted as such. So in addition to the penalties that Anthony's would face, the server themselves could face criminal charges.
Okay. That's a great suggestion. Thank you very much for that. We'll make sure to make note of that and put that on our acknowledgement forms.
And Elizabeth, you can forward this material to Nora and her alcohol committee to review this before Chris or whoever signs this.
Yep.
Great. Mary Ann, I'm ready.
All
And
right.
thank you all very much.
I'm sorry, just to understand the difference here. The suggestion that Nora just mentioned would be for our servers and bartenders to read and sign before each shift. That's separate from the bars program and the contract with the bars program, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that just the acknowledgement form. We'd be happy to have the Alcohol Review Committee review it and make suggestions to you.
Sure.
You understand that that's up to Anthony's to draft that form.
Yes. Yes.
Great clarification. Thank you.
Excuse
I'm
me,
ready.
Mary Ann, just as a question. Mr. Chair, I believe this is a public hearing, so I don't know if you want to ask if there was any questions regarding the public hearing
Oh,
before you close it.
thanks, Chris. Yeah, is there, do we have anything, Tish, from the public on this?
No questions right now.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Mary Ann, I think I'm ready.
All right. I hereby move that the select board impose a 3-day alcohol license suspension for Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza with 1 day held in abeyance pending any further infractions within a year of the select board's decision. Should there be any infraction in that time frame, the aforementioned suspension will occur within 10 days of the infraction on the next closest Friday or Saturday, in addition to any other action the board may subsequently deem appropriate. The 2-day alcohol license suspension is to take place on dates to be specified by the board, days to be served consecutively, excluding a Sunday or Monday by October 30, 2024.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Do I have a second?
Before I second that, since that motion includes the specification of dates, should we do that now?
I would.
Thank you, Pat. All right, Rob, you're on.
Well, so today is the 30th. I would say, probably the 15th, 16th, which are the Tuesday and Wednesday immediately following Columbus Day.
We'll accept that friendly amendment to my motion.
And I will then second the amended motion.
A roll call on the amendment to the motion. Mary Ann.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I agree. I vote aye as well. Thank you, Rob. All right. So now we can.
Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, point of order. It's a public hearing. I think you have to close the public hearing.
Right. I was thinking about voting on the motion that Mary Ann made.
I believe we just did.
I think
Did
you
we?
already have.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then I'll follow up with what Pat just said. I need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Mary Ann.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you all very much.
Just one last question, for the 15th and 16th, that there is no alcohol sales. Do they have to remove all the alcohol from the bar area? Everything has to be removed from site. Is that correct? Or should I talk to somebody about that after? I just want to make sure we have the proper protocols in place.
So you will get a letter from Karen Flynn that will explain all that. I believe it's sufficient to cover the alcohol from view, but it'll all be explained in the letter.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks,
Thank
Chris. All right, our next agenda item is other post-employment benefits update, and we have Miss Stephanie and I believe Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Kathy Riley. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. I can take it away if that works.
Please. Yep.
Yeah. So great. So the goal tonight is to provide the board with an update on where we stand on our OPEB liability. So I'm going to start off just with some background on the town's efforts related to OPEB so far and measures that we've taken up to this point to comply with all the mass laws, the GASB standards, and all the town's financial policies relating to this. I'll then turn it over to the real expert in the room, Kathy Riley. She's great. She's the vice president and chief actuary for Siegel. She's also joined by her colleague Fabrice. He's an analyst at Siegel. They have been performing our actuarial evaluations for the last 10 years or so. So the most recent report is, the report's completed every 2 years, and Kathy will walk through the most recent results with you. So if it's okay, I would like to share my screen for a quick presentation on my part, and then I promise I'll turn it right over.
Please. Thank you, Stephanie.
Right. Yep. All right, if you can see that okay?
Yes.
So OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, and they are the non-pension benefits for retiree, which includes, for the most part, health insurance. It's an unfunded liability for the employee post-retirement benefits, and these costs have historically not been funded by municipalities. So over the years, what is called unfunded liabilities have built up. In Westwood, we have already established, which is a great thing for the town to do, an OPEB trust fund. And per our financial policies, we developed a funding schedule for this liability. So the town is required to have a liability analysis performed every other year, which is sort of what we're here about tonight. And we must disclose the status in our annual financial statements that are reviewed each year and come out at the end of December. And then we also have to file with the state PERAC, PERAC. I won't spell that all out for you. There's currently no requirement to fund as we are doing, but there would be major impacts if the town did not, such as the liability continuing to grow. Just in future budget years down the road, it would be something that would impact us that we'd have to look at. And at that point, it would just be much larger than it is today. There would also be a negative impact on the town's bond rating. Right now, we hold a AAA credit rating, which is the highest that it can be. So that would just have impacts on that as well. So most recently, the review was performed as of June 30th, 2023. So we're always a little bit behind. So it's every other year. And then the report comes out as a certain date and we try to review it once we get that from our actuarial firm. So all of these reports, I just want to say also are included in the finance section of the annual town meeting book and then also posted on the town's website for anyone to review. So just some history on how we've made some positive impacts on liability over the years. On the expense side, the town looked at how to help control the cost of providing health insurance. So past select boards made the decision to transition to the state GIC program, which was a great positive impact at the time, and also eliminated redundant many B reimbursement payments to retirees. So both these decisions that happened probably 10 years ago now helped lower expenses and have an impact positively on the overall liability. Then on the funding side, the town established a trust fund that I referenced for OPEB. When this was first set up, there was not large contributions being made towards that fund. But when the town had some significant savings from those two changes I just mentioned, they took the opportunity to put those budget savings towards the OPEB liability. So now there's an annual contribution each year at town meeting where the fund is increased each year by $25,000. So you'll just see the history here of the allocations. Well, we started off, with significant changes, putting some contributions in, and then at town meeting each year, we have made that as a separate article to contribute to the fund, increasing by $25,000 a year. So funds can be saved in this account from year to year, and interest earned remains with that account. And so the goal here is to reduce and then eventually eliminate the unfunded liability for these benefits. And then once the funds started accumulating some significant money, it became a priority for the town to invest those funds and earn investment income. So the state has an option that allows towns to invest their money with the Pension Reserve Investment Management Board, or PRIM. So PRIM provides an investment service, and then the funds are then invested through them in the State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund, which was established by mass law. So when this is paid off for the town, it was a great move. The trust fund currently has a balance of $24.5 million as of August 31st of this year. It's a big accomplishment by the town and shows the collaboration of all the different boards throughout town, the FinCom, Select Board, the residents town meeting, to really prioritize the strong financial planning to make sure Westwood's in the best place it can be financially. And this is just a very quick chart, which Kathy will go into more detail on, just showing the progress each year, if you can see, of the declining liability and then the increasing funded ratio. So those, you want to see this decline and this increase. So those have been positive. And we're on the right track. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Riley now, without further ado, performs the report and is fantastic. She's helped.
Before you leave this one, Steph.
Yeah, sure.
Just in the last two columns there between 21 and 23, where you typically like to see line 2 declining and line 3 increasing, but that's not happening in 2023. Was there something of note that happened? Were there more retirees in the program at that point? What happened there?
So it's a function of cost and then also some updated assumptions, which is exactly what Kathy's going to walk through. If you don't mind me sort of handing it over to her to answer those questions, Rob, but they're the exact questions you want to ask, because that's what she's going to walk through. Does that sound okay?
It does. And just one last thing from, earlier when you talked about, the importance of funding this, and you talked about our AAA bond rating, for any residents watching that, that has a direct impact on our ability to borrow for the projects that we do in the town, right? So
yeah, procure the best rates to borrow.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing unless, so Kathy, are you in the room? And Fabrice?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, great. Do you need me to share anything or are you gonna do that on your end? I can share the report or you can.
And we could share.
Okay, great.
Kathy, I think you're on mute.
I think our volume's not working. Kathy, can you hear us? If you can hear me, you can't hear you.
All right, Fabrice, could you get started, please?
Yeah. So,
Kathy, just raise your hand in case there's something you want to say. Thank you.
yeah, okay. So, hi, my name is Fabrice Camayo, and I am a senior retiree health analyst with SIGL. I'll try to share my screen. Is it showing?
Yes. Well, I think
okay.
so.
Okay. So SIGL has prepared the town of Westwood OPEB actual valuation as of June 30, 2023. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. So this is essentially retiree health, as Stephanie mentioned. And with this report, we present two things. The first is to calculate the liability for the town of Westwood retiree health cost. And the second thing that we show is a plan to fund these liabilities using an OPEB trust. The report has several pages, and I believe, as Stephanie said, you can download it from the website. There's several pages, but most of this report is just disclosing information, assumption that we use in order to calculate the liabilities. So today we'll just focus on two pages, page 12, which is the summary of valuation result, and also page 14, which is the funding schedule. But before I take you to those pages, I could mention that in order to calculate the liabilities, we at SIGL collect participant data from the town of Westwood as of June 30, 2023. We also collect GIC health plan election. We collect updated OPEB trust asset information as of the valuation date. And also we get updated premium information on the plans that the town offers to its participant. So with all this information, we calculate a cost, and we show that cost on page 28. If you give me a second, I can switch to that page. So here on page 28, at the top of the page, we say per capita health cost. So this is an average cost per participant, and we're showing the cost for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. That average is the retiree health cost based on current plan election and age. And it should come to no surprise here that as we increase the age or as we get older, those health costs do increase. So SIGL use this cost, and we project this cost over time using trends, using expected medical and prescription drug trends from several data sources. We also use other demographic assumptions such as the mortality rates, the retirement rates, in order to obtain the liability of the town of Westwood. And we did that as of June 30, 2023. So now if I take you to page 12, this page is a summary of the valuation result. We show two columns on this exhibit. The first one is the result as of June 30, 2023. And the column on the right-hand side is the result as of June 30, 2021. So in the first column, in line 3, we show the total liability. That's $46.4 million as of June 30, 2023. That liability is 20 million of retiree and dependents. Those are the people currently receiving retiree health benefits. And the second part of it is line item 2, the active employee that may be eligible to receive these benefits once they retire. So that is a total liability of 46.4 million. That is offset by line item 4, which is the OPEB trust assets as of the valuation date. And that gives us an unfunded liability of 27.6 million as of June 30, 2023. In the prior valuation, we do this valuation every 2 years. Prior valuation as of June 30, 2021, the liability was the unfunded liability, so line item 5 on the right side, was 19.8 million. So we do see an increase.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So between June 30th, 2021 and June 30th, 2023, we see a 50% increase roughly in the cost of the unfunded liability. What I'm curious is the driver of that. Is that healthcare costs? Is that some of the assumptions that you were just talking about from page 28, or is that enrolled participants?
Okay, so my next slide actually will show that. So we can actually go to my next slide, which is page 6 of the report, where at the bottom of, and please let me know if I'm not answering the question. At the bottom of this report, we show how we go from the June 30, 2021 unfunded liability to the June 30, 2023 unfunded liability. The changes are an experience gain. So that is basically us updating the valuation with new census information. So we receive a new listing from the town. So that's a gain of 900,000. Then we have an investment loss of 1.9 million. And that is because the assets did not increase as we expected them to increase. Then we have several updates here. And the next two, those are the main drivers of this increase. So we have the update on the per capita cost that I mentioned earlier on page 28 and the contributions, and also an update on the future trend on those costs for 3 and 4.7 million respectively. And then we also have a minor update on the teacher mortality projection. So that is a net increase of 8.9 million, and that gives us the June 30, 2023 liability of 27.6.
Right. May I pause here and just ask a few more clarifying questions? So the updated per capita cost and contributions increase of 3.1 million, and the updating of future trends. Is that a combination of the fact that we expect to have higher healthcare per capita costs and higher numbers of older retirees drawing benefit? I'm trying to understand, to put this into sort of lay terms here. In my mind, there's two drivers. There's the number of people receiving benefit, and then there's the actual cost of the benefit itself.
Right. So the 3 million figure here doesn't include necessarily the increase of the number of retirees. This is the updated cost that we receive and that we have obtained from the GIC plan election, and the update in the GIC premiums as well.
So this is all sort of insurance cost related.
That is correct.
If I could ask a question, just to jump in. So how do we distinguish that from future trends in layperson's terms?
Right. So the future trend is basically what we expect those trends, to increase over time. So from the prior valuation, let's say we were assuming they will increase by $100, right? With new experience and new information that we receive and we gather from several data sources, we actually say, oh, the increase is actually X, which is higher than what we expected. So that will probably, that's the explanation for the future trends. So yeah,
that's,
mhm.
if I'm understanding, so we're updating the per capita cost to keep the math simple, $3 million. And we're updating future trends to 4.5. So that's, again, that's up 50% is what we're expecting.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, we updating the per capita cost, and that's I think part of it is, the GIC had some plan changes. They did some renovation of the plans that they offer. So that also affected the town. So that's why we had this update in the per capita cost. And the trends, it's basically a projection of this cost, from the valuation that going forward. So those are the main two drivers here. But although we do see an increase in the liability, so that actually brought the ratio, if I go back on page 12, it brings that funded ratio, which is the proportion of the assets with respect to the liability, it brings that ratio down. What's more important is that the town actually has a plan to fund these liabilities. Nothing is perfect. So here we are at 27.6 million in liabilities on a 22-year remaining schedule. If nothing changes, yes, we'll fully fund in 22 years. But as we know, in the next valuation, we're gonna have an update in the participant data. We're gonna have updated premiums, so we'll have to refine the assumption and see where we stand. So in order to,
can you just
yes, I'm here.
based on the dip in the funded ratio, we were on track at one point, I believe, to in the next 10 years or so be fully funded. But this change seems to likely impact that time frame.
Yeah, it does. And then what it did for this valuation, I believe it moved the fully funded date by about 5 years.
Which way?
Out.
Out.
Ouch. Thank you.
I believe that date is now 2045. Is that correct?
That's significantly out. That's not 5 years. That's about 12 years if I'm hearing things correctly.
The date is 2039.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
do show that date on exhibit 14 when we get to that. The exhibit on the page 14.
Sorry, we're jumping the gun here.
Well, I mean, and Fabrice, I know we're asking very pointed questions. You are helping us sort of navigate all of this with all of the changes in healthcare so that we can be fully funded in the future, and not have this liability hanging over our heads. So, these are questions that are important for us as we consider many other things.
Right. So the question here again is to know how we're going to fund this unfunded liability. And usually there are two ways to do that. So one way is to set up a time frame and to calculate what the payment will be every year in order to fully fund it. The other way is to determine what the town can contribute, and then we can see how long it will take. The way we found it here is the same as the first way I just spoke about. So this is the same as a traditional mortgage payment. And we had initially set up a time frame of 30 years, and now we're 8 years into it. There's 22 years remaining. So in line item 8, what we show here, that's the amortization payment. The 22-year amortization payment on the unfunded. And to that payment, we add the normal cost, which is the accrued benefit during the fiscal year. And that gives us a total ADC, actually determined contribution of 3.6 million. If that amortization payment, assuming that we increase it by 3% per year, then we become fully funded in with that 22-year payment figure. And in line item 11 to 14, we show the same numbers. But for the next.
And I'm sorry, so you're saying if we were to increase our annual contribution to the fund from our current amount, we would be able to maintain our timeline that we are currently on for 2033 fully funded? Is that what I heard you say?
No, what I was saying is that we're actually much earlier. If I can switch to page 14. This is a 22-year payment schedule, but page 14 show that funding schedule, and then from 2024 out to 2039 is much less than the 22 years. So we're still ahead on that 22-year schedule.
Right. So we're still, yeah, because in column 2, you see that we are, at that zero out, right? So
Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is if you increase the annual payment, we're roughly 1.5 million that we contribute to the fund now. What would it take to, get back to where we thought we were at 2033? So we'd have to shave off 5 or 6 years.
Right. You're talking about increasing the contribution in column 6, right? Increasing that contribution will definitely reduce the amount of time it will take to fully fund these liabilities. We could certainly make another schedule with contribution amounts if needed. Stephanie can talk to us about it.
I think the important thing is they're doing their projections right now based on our funding schedule that we have. This is a report that's done at a specific time frame, and it has to be included in our financial report. So it's sort of all, and again, this was as of June 30th, 2023. So yeah, no, Fabrice, I would like you to just sort of go forward with what we're talking about here and just explain the rest of what we had talked about.
Sorry, Steph, didn't mean to derail.
It helps. No, it's fine. I completely understand. I know there's so much information here. We're all very excited to have them here tonight talking about it. I just kind of want him to get through so that you have the whole picture, and then we can definitely take questions. So thank you.
Right.
And
So
Fabrice, I think on the too.
yeah. Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
I just wanted to say, I think I'm on the call now too. I apologize for abandoning you with my technical difficulties. You want me to take it? You want me to wrap up with the funding schedule?
Yeah, all I was going to add is on page 12, we're also showing the projected benefit payment on line item 10 for fiscal year 2024. That's 1.9 million. And then for the following year is 2.2 million. So yeah, I'll hand it back to you, Kathy. So you can talk about the funding schedule and other aspects of this valuation.
Great. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties and for leaving Fabrice hanging there for a couple of minutes. I'm on my phone, so I can hear you. I can't see the screen, so I'm going to have to rely on Fabrice to turn any pages that we need turned. And what I wanted to say is I'm going to go back to when Fabrice was looking at page 6 and explaining the increase in the unfunded liability, that $8 million increase. And the two big drivers are the two numbers there, the cost of increasing per capita costs and the trend rates. And if it helps explain it, when I think of those, I think of them sort of, they're related. Those are the two pieces that it's the healthcare, the cost of healthcare that's driving the liabilities up. And that first piece, the per capita cost, that's the recent experience coming in from the prior valuation to the current valuation, costs increasing more than expected. So we kind of reset the baseline going forward. And then we look at where we expect trends, medical trend and costs to go in the future. And we reset that expectation, and that added that second piece of increase, that $4 million and change increase in liability. And, healthcare costs, the increases, they increase every year. It's somewhat cyclical. Some years healthcare costs go up more than others. We try to level it out in our assumptions going forward. And every now and then we have to reset those assumptions, which is what we did with this valuation. I mean, if you kind of think of I think a lot of it's being driven by the cost of providing prescription drugs and, the new drugs that are available, the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, that if they haven't yet affected costs. They are going to, they're baked into the trends because we expect them to affect those costs going forward. And I just want to say one more thing about that $8 million, because I think I heard someone mention that it was a 50% increase in the unfunded liability. Well, we have to go back and remember that the liabilities of the retirement system were, let me just flip my page here. The liabilities increased from 35 to $46 million, not the unfunded liability, but the total promise of benefits that were going to be paid. And part of that increase was an expected increase because, you know, as people age, get closer to retirement, those liabilities are expected to grow in each and every year. That $8 million increase was more than expected, but it's not 50% of the liabilities. It's probably maybe a 25% increase in the liabilities. Still a large increase. I'm not minimizing, but it's not a 50% increase. So that was the comment I wanted to make on the increase in the unfunded liability. And with that, I'm just going to explain a little bit the funding schedule on page 14 that I think Fabrice has in front of you. And this is where we look at, Fabrice mentioned that there's a couple of different ways to fund these obligations. You can either pick an ending point, and if you pick the ending point, we can tell you what contribution you need to put in, although it may be revised over time with gains and losses. The other approach is the approach that you've opted for, is you have a funding policy in place, and we're going to compare those contributions as they grow with investment income to your liabilities. And that's what we see on page 14. We see your assets in column 8, and those assets are growing based on the amount that you put in according to your funding policy, which is column 6. So you add the assets plus the contribution in column 6, grow them with the 6.5% interest assumption, and you can see that in 2039, they're $97 million and over $100 million the year later. And if you look at the next column, these are the liabilities. And these are liabilities expecting to grow each and every year with our existing assumptions. Now, if our assumptions are overly optimistic, the liabilities will grow a little faster. And if we've been too conservative, they won't grow quite as quickly. But in any case, liabilities are going to grow. And so what we've done here is sort of solve for when will those assets equal those liabilities. And it's in 2039, 16 years out, which is, faster than the original funding schedule that was set up, but not looking quite as good as it did with the last valuation. It is pushed out 5 more years from the prior valuation. One more comment I want to make, responding to somebody asked about, what would you have to do to accelerate the contributions? And as Fabrice said, we'd have to model that. But when you look at that target contribution that Fabrice showed you, the $3.7 million, that's the number in column 3. We don't compare that $3.6 million just to the contributions going into the trust. We compare it to the contributions going into the trust, plus the cash that you pay every year out of your operating budget towards retiree medical benefits. And that amount is shown in column 4. So your total outlay for retiree health benefits is the sum of column 4 and 6, which is shown in column 7. And you can see that number is awfully close initially to the target contribution. But as you go down the column, you can see you're actually funding more. Column 7 exceeds column 3 the further down the column you go, which is why it's only taking 16 years to fully fund the obligations and not the 22 initial target. And with that, I'm going to pause, and I can't see anybody, so if somebody has questions, you'll just have to shut them out.
Thank you, Kath. Rob, do you need a minute or two to digest this, Marianne?
No, I think at this point, this is very, very helpful to understand what the drivers of the change are. And I think Fabrice did an excellent job explaining that, and obviously this changes some of the time horizon from what we had from our last update. I do have one other question. Earlier, you showed an investment loss, and Just can you elaborate on that a little bit? I mean, obviously, it was, probably fairly consistent with a conservative portfolio in the marketplace, but give us a little narrative around that.
Sure. So the portfolio actually is not that conservative. It's the State Retiree Benefit Trust Fund, and it's invested in a broad cross section of assets. But the measuring period for that loss was June 30, 21 through June 30, 23, and the market return to that PRIT portfolio in calendar 22 was about a minus 10%. So all retirement systems and all of our retirement systems and all of our OPEB funds lost money in calendar, had negative returns compared to our assumption of 6.5%. So, a negative 10% return compared to an assumption of 6.5% is an 18% loss. So that's what that investment loss represents, is from those 2 fiscal years, but it's primarily calendar 22. We have, as Stephanie said, you've taken this valuation, we've already rolled it forward to the end of the fiscal year for your accounting valuation, and some of those investment losses have been recouped, not all of them, but for fiscal 24, we measured an investment gain. So some of that came back. And for fiscal 24, we rolled forward those liabilities that, based on the valuation that Fabrice reviewed with you. We picked up the June 30, 2024 assets, and then there was one more change that was reflected in the June 30, 2024 numbers, and that was the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed by Congress, which is effective in calendar 25. We've estimated the cost impact of the Inflation Reduction Act, and it added another $2 or $3 million to the liability. What the Inflation Reduction Act does is provide prescription drug benefits for Medicare recipients at much lower out-of-pocket costs, which means there's a cost to the plan. The guidelines aren't out from the government yet. They were supposed to be out this summer, so we're still estimating that impact, but I believe it was in the 7 to 8% range of liabilities. But even with that, the funded percentage as the end of fiscal 24 was back up to 43.7%. So we're still seeing positive movement in the funded percentage, and that's, again, as I said, picking up an investment gain for fiscal 2024 and an estimate of the cost impact of the Inflation Reduction Act.
Thank
But
you, Kathy.
40 plus percent funded for OPEB is really a great place to be in. And just as important is where you are, is the fact that you have a plan in place. And quite honestly, whether it's an 11-year plan or a 16-year plan, both of those are short plans to have your OPEB liabilities funded. And while we'd like to think that we can do a perfect job estimating these numbers each year, healthcare costs are incredibly volatile, and we'll continue, unfortunately, I think we'll continue to see volatility in these numbers especially as we get closer and closer to full funding.
Thank you, Kathy. Joe, I have no further questions.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Kath. Mary Ann, did you have a question?
Just quickly, Kathy and Fabrice, thank you very much. Kathy, based on your knowledge of other communities in Massachusetts, what's your assessment on how we are doing in terms of being 40% funded?
That's great. I mean, it's a combination of 40% funded and the projection of being funded in another, 16 years. And that's after, we saw all of our funds, clients, OPEB and retirement, take a little step back with calendar 2022 investment performance. That probably affected retirement systems more than OPEB trust, because retirement systems are generally better funded. But then when you layer in this Inflation Reduction Act adjustment, to be moving forward into being 16 years away, is really a great place to be. But I want to emphasize that's kind of a moving target. It's going to shorten. It's going to go out. It's going to move around a little bit, but it's the funded percentage is what we're looking at too.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, I'm not sure. I'm sure I missed it, but Kathy, I think Marion asked, how do we stand in comparison to other communities? Can you comment on that?
Really, oh, I'm sorry, really well, because, I mean, your funded percentage is higher than most. I mean, you know, we have some clients that have, 4 or 5% funded. They're just beginning to fund. The ones that are 4 and 5% funded, I think, are really waiting for their companion retirement system to be fully funded, and then they're going to move some money over. And then we have some clients that are kind of parallel funding OPEB and retirement like you are. So relative, there are other systems other municipalities doing what you're doing, funding OPEB at the same time as you're funding retirement, but you're much further ahead than many. And the other pieces though, but also you're only 16 years away from the target. So it's really the two that you need to look at.
Okay, and from my understanding, Kath, you're projecting 2039 our assets to equal our liabilities.
As of this valuation, yes.
Great. All right, Marianne, thanks for asking. I can sleep better tonight. Anyone else have any questions? I see something in the chat. Tish, is that relative to this?
That's just a comment from Kathy that she was joining.
Oh, great.
There's no Q&A. So we took care of that.
Okay. Stephanie, I think we're good with Fabrice and Kathy.
Yep, I think we're all set. Fabrice, you can stop sharing if you don't mind. And thank you both very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And Stephanie, I think you have the next chapter in our meeting.
Yes, apologize. I'm thinking you might see a lot of me tonight.
Not an issue at all. You always do a great job, Steph.
All right, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Okay, so next topic is what I'm coming in with is a financial update. So I'm going to go over this time of year. We always come in with what's called sort of a year-end closeout. So I'm going to go over that as well as a timeline for the upcoming budget. And then after this presentation, I'll also come in with our most recent update on our free cash certification. So at this time of year, we always say we have 3 fiscal years happening at the same time. So we just closed out what was fiscal year 24. But on our end of things, we're still working on closing that year out. So free cash was certified in the fall. It was just certified this month, and I'll go through that after this. That's with the Department of Revenue. In October, we're also submitting other reporting requirements to the DOR and the DOE to, again, close out all of our expenditures and revenues for FY24. We also had our third-party audit firm on site. They completed the audit this year, so they were on site 2 weeks at the beginning of September. That financial report that they draft each year is due out December 31st. They also met with the 3-person audit committee, and that all went very well. They went over the student activity accounts. I want to give a shout out to Lemma at the school. She did a great job with that this year. They go through all of our student activities. They reviewed that with the audit committee, and everything went very smoothly. It really turned out great. So that is the report that the town has done fantastic on. The last, I think, 20 years has received the GFOA award. So hopefully that'll be the same for this report, but all has been going well so far. We're also completing the current year budget process, which might seem crazy, but we're still in the process of FY25 in the budget cycle. So we're finalizing all the property values. That happens around this time of year in October and November. We'll then finalize and get DOR approval for all of those FY25 property values. And this includes getting that final number, which is very important in setting the next tax levy in the next budget cycle, getting that final FY25 new growth number. So that's an important figure that we wait for. FY25 tax rate, we're hoping to have that tax classification hearing that you have every year in November. I believe the target date right now is November 19th. That's when the board decides on the shift factor between the residential and commercial rate. We'll have our new assessor in town, who's great, Cheryl Hanley. She just started a couple weeks ago. So she'll be coming in front of you with the assessing board to present that. They will then submit the FY25 tax rate for approval by the DOR, and the actual bills will be mailed out for FY25 on January 1st with final numbers for the residents. And then we begin the budget cycle for FY26. All right, so some key financial FY26 budget development dates coming up. I'm going to sort of go backwards here. So the select board has moved the annual town meeting date that year. This year it's May 19th. This is where the FY26 budget is voted. And so if you backtrack from there, by charter, we are required to present the FY26 budget recommendation from the board 3 months prior to annual town meeting. That date we always set is February 1st. And then FinCom is also involved in this process per the charter. They conduct one or more public hearings at least 14 days prior to the submission at annual town meeting. So this year, the budget presentation in front of FinCom is scheduled for February 11th, and then the public hearings are February 25th and March 25th. Then on the select board side, for the next couple of months, fall through January, we'll review overall detailed operating capital budget requests. I'll come before you a number of times to update you on financial projections and then review any expenditures that we're projecting for FY26. And then February 1st, like I said, is that key date to have the budget recommendation. And then town meeting on May 19th. So for tonight's meeting, you'll hear the FY24 year-end close and details on how we closed out on the revenue and expenditure side. I'm also going to go through a few kind of financial items such as free cash, state aid, and where we are with our meals and hotel tax revenue. Upcoming meetings, November, like I said, we'll have that tax specification scheduled right now for November 19th. In December, I'll preview for the first time the FY26 budget, and then I'll continue coming in front of you hopefully early January for the capital budget requests, and then later on in the month, the municipal and operating budgets, as well as the overall budget. And then that review and prep of the budget book to be out February 1st. And then in February and March, I'll continue coming before the board to update you on any adjustments that have come before us due to any outside assessments, as well as any revenue updates. And then just a reminder, I'm presenting the budget to FinCom. That's scheduled for February 11th. So for tonight, I'm going to go through revenue and how that closed out for FY24. It's all good stuff, closed out successfully. On the real estate side, we're on target. We also had strong local receipts revenue. I'll go through that. On the expenditure side, all departments closed out successfully. The departments do a really great job staying within those budgets that they're allocated at town meeting and effectively managing throughout the year. So I want to thank them for that. And then any overages that we're seeing were able to be covered by the select board transfers or the town meeting, this past town meeting in May, Articles 1 and 2. So just going into a little bit more detail here. The final FY24 budget revenue for the year was $121 million. So taxes, we always say this, our tax base is really the main driver of what funds our budget. It's 80% of our overall budget. We're lucky in Westwood. We can rely on this tax base because it's a difficult model to go through. We talk about this with Prop 2.5, but we are lucky in the fact that we have a 99% collection rate. So our residents pay taxes on time. That's good because so it's a reliable source of income. Just some background also, which is important to note. As of June 30th, our total past due outstanding taxes is $258,000. So that's cumulative for all years. It's not just this one year. So that means, you know, the total we're billing out $93 million in taxes and only have outstanding past due $258,000, which is a great number. We also have $486,000 in tax deferral outstanding. So that's again cumulative, not just for 1 year. And compared to what we're collecting, again, it's another great rate. And this program in particular is where seniors in town are eligible to defer their taxes until they sell their home. So it's a really great program, a great benefit for seniors in town to have. State aid, just as a reminder, the FY24 state aid final number, there was a big bump that year, came in at $8 million. The majority of that is on the education aid side, so Chapter 70 at $7 million. It's approximately 7% of our total revenue budget, so another big source of revenue for us. Luckily, over the years, it's been steady. There hasn't been any major cuts. So we anticipate, you know, that same level of increase that we anticipate year over year, just the steady no cuts to state aid. So I assume the same for the FY26 budget. For the local receipts revenue, this is probably the biggest update on the revenue side. So local receipts is the collections that we make at the local level. So it's primarily motor vehicle excise tax and then any fees or user fees we collect throughout the year. So total collections for FY24 came out at a total of 9.5 million. Just for comparison, the prior year was 8.7 million. This did exceed the budget projections by 5.3 million. This is an area where we purposefully are very conservative with our budgeting estimates. These are numbers that can fluctuate from year to year. So we'd like to provide a cushion in our budgeting to make sure that we hit our target each year as required by the DOR. So like I said, the major drivers for this year in particular were motor vehicle excise, departmental fees and permits, and investment income. So motor vehicle side, the collection was higher than projected. For the increased permit fee revenue, that was really growth in building permits. So the building department brought in more revenue than projected. And then investment income. So I'm sure I talked about this at last year's meeting, but we actually had even better rates throughout FY24 than we did throughout FY23. So the combination of the great interest rates, another full year of realized interest rates, and then a higher cash balance at the beginning of the year drove up our investment income revenues for this year. So this is just a quick chart of the largest driver of our local receipts, which is motor vehicle. So as you can see, we've been pretty steadily consistent around that $3.5 million mark, and it was a good increase in FY24, so that's a positive thing. So meals and hotel tax revenue, this is another good source of revenue that the town has. We specifically use these revenues to fund one-time capital projects and not our ongoing operating budgets. So just as a reminder, in November of 2017 town meeting, the residents approved establishing a special purpose fund to hold all meals and hotel tax revenue until it can be appropriated by a future town meeting. This was a great move to make. You don't want to fund ongoing operating expenses with this because this is, again, another fluctuating revenue source, as you can see in this chart. So this is obviously FY21 was the COVID year. So obviously you see a dip, but since then it has definitely increased again. We're seeing more steady income from both the meals tax revenue, as you can see in this chart on the left, as well as the hotel tax revenue here on the right. So for FY24, you can see that number increased from FY23 in both categories. And just as a reminder, the last time that we appropriated any of these funds towards projects was at the May 2023 town meeting. That was for projects that we like to say are benefit, the whole town, such as a school networks upgrade. They needed an upgrade done of their system, the high school auditorium project, various projects at the library. So things that the town can benefit from. And like I said, one-time capital projects. So the balance in that account as of June 30th, 2024 is $2 million. And just a reminder, no funds were appropriated at this past town meeting from that account. So on the expense side, the total FY24 operating budget was $112.2 million. And overall, FY24 closed out on track. Everything was financially successful. There were no issues in any department. The departments, like I said, worked hard to remain within their budget. And any transfers, Article 1 and 2, or select board of income were done where needed. As you can see, school and municipal operating budget is the majority of these expenditures, followed by our fixed costs and benefits. That's a huge cost. So health insurance, pension, then state charges, debt, and sewer. So each year, not all the budget is used, and we call that turn back. So this is just a description of the turn back results. We're not allowed by state law to carry over any of these funds from year to year like we can with capital, or to reallocate it for other uses. So each year, whatever of the budget we don't use, it closes out and goes back to free cash. So just as a comparison for FY24, this graph shows the number of turn back was 3.3 million. Sounds like a significant number, but it's approximately 3% of the overall budget. And just comparing for previous year turn back, FY23 was 2.5 million, 2.5%. 22 was 2.1 million, 2.2%. 21 was 2.6 or 2.8%, and then 20 was 2.3 or 2.6%. So on track with our turn back, no issues, no concerns in that end. And then just a little bit more detail on this, on the turn back amounts by budget category. So the largest amount is obviously benefits. It's a fixed cost account, and this is an appropriate margin for that budget. We need to sort of have flexibility. This is the account that funds health insurance, payroll taxes, all of which have fluctuations throughout the year. So that is a normal turn back number for that account. The other one that might stand out is that you see the select board and reserve fund reserves also turn back a total of about $672,000. It was just a year where we did not need to tap into the select board reserve as we might have needed to in past years. And then as far as FinCom, all we needed from that account for FY24 was at the last town meeting, we used $50,000 to close out the snow and ice account. And just a quick snow and ice update too. This is the only budget, if you remember, that is legally allowed to be overspent. The chart shows the history of the town's expenses related to the snow and ice account. We've been pretty steadily on track with an average of spending about $450,000. We were well within that range in FY24. Like I said, we just needed that $50,000 reserve transfer from the FinCom to cover that account. And then next steps in the budget cycle. So that November date, I'm anticipating for the tax classification on November 19th. This will determine the commercial residential tax shift and also get the tax rate approved by the DOR. That'll really be the jumping point of the next FY26 budget when we get those numbers in place, get new growth, and move on to the next budget year. November through February, like I said, I'll be at your meetings to talk about FY26 revenue projections, give updates on local revenue sources. When the state budget from the governor comes in, I'll update you on that, hopefully late January. And then the tax levy calculation, including the FY25 final new growth, is what I'll start working on and presenting to you. Continuing to review capital budget articles, we've had our departments submit all their wish list capital article requests. So we're going through those right now. And then we'll be presenting the select board to do our annual capital and then also timing of any larger projects to be considered. We'll then be reviewing the FY26 municipal budget requests. Those have not yet come in from departments, but when they do, we'll start building those, the base budget, as well as any new positions or programs the departments have requested for FY26. Like I said, the governor's budget typically at the end of January, which will be previewed at the MMA, hopefully meeting in January. And then the select board's proposed budget document of February 1st, municipal, overall, and capital. And that's the end of that presentation. I am going to move on to free cash. I'll do that sort of up next, just a couple of slides, unless anyone has any questions that they want to ask specifically about this. Otherwise, I'll obviously just take anything you have at the end.
Keep going, you're on a roll.
Okay, I'm trying to go through it quick. All right, so free cash. This is all good news. So free cash was certified on September 6th by the Department of Revenue. Just a reminder, free cash is what we call our retained earnings as we close out the previous fiscal year. There's a process each municipality goes through to get free cash certified. It involves a number of steps, submitting a number of reports, documentation reviewed by the Department of Revenue, balance sheet reconciliation of cash and receivables, statements of the town's debt position. So I really want to first off thank our town accountant, Maria O'Leary, and our assistant treasurer, Kathy Foley, for their real hard work in getting this done. Westwood's probably one of the first communities each year that gets their free cash certified. So that's great. And this plays an important role in both our upcoming budget cycle, as well as our strong credit rating that we always talk about. So for this year, for FY25, the amount certified as of June 30th of 2024 is about $14.4 million. Just a reminder, this certification amount includes actual receipts above estimated revenue projections. So sort of what I just walked through with our local receipts, anything that comes in above what we project for revenue. It also includes any turnback or unspent funds from each department, and then any unexpended free cash from the previous year. So just as a reminder, we use this in a disciplined nature. We don't fund ongoing operating expenditures or budget shortfalls with free cash. Per the financial policies, we also keep an amount unallocated each year. For FY24, that number is 4.3 million unallocated. So we use this towards capital needs. Some history on what we've been using it most recently. The current FY25 was funded with almost $6 million of free cash. That included the base school and municipal capital, the stabilization and reserve funds, town meeting Article 2 transfers, and then the $2.1 million for the fire station design that was approved in the 2024 January 2024 special town meeting. This is just a chart that shows the amount certified each year in blue, just for some history on how that's been going, and then the amount used in the subsequent budget year in green, which is a little confusing because it gets approved and then used to fund a next fiscal year. So as you can see, it's definitely significantly higher than it was in, say, 2021, 22. Last year, we had a good number come in at 10.9. This year, it was even better at 14.3. I'll sort of, in the next slide, go through a little bit of why that is, but this is just some history over the years. Similar to the chart I just showed, it's a breakdown of what has been used from each year's free cash certification. And here's July 2024, so the 14.3, and I just plugged in sort of the potential use for FY26 because I just want to remind the board that we already have sort of anticipated each year at town meeting we fund certain articles with free cash on a regular ongoing basis. A big part of that is the stabilization fund. We put $125,000 towards that each year. Our reserve funds, so FinCom, Select Board, at $560,000 currently. Estimating our capital, what we call our base capital article, at $3 million, in case we were to look at an increase at that annual allocation of base capital. And then any additional articles that might come up that could be a good source for free cash to fund. So just projecting out sort of what we have baseline year to year, what we're already anticipating using, it's about 4.2 million, which would leave an unallocated amount around 10 million. And our unallocated free cash target for the financial policies for FY25, I said FY24 earlier, for FY25 is 4.3 million. Anything above that target can be used for, like I said, base school and municipal capital, extra one-time capital expenses, snow and ice, one-time needs. And it does protect the town against any fluctuations year to year. It's a good funding source in case anything arises, an urgent nature that would need to be funded. So I already went through this a bit, but it's the calculation of the town's unrestricted funds from the previous year. It includes actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates, unspent amount in department budgets, and unexpended free cash from the previous year. It's also offset by what we call property tax receivables and then other deficits that we have to account for when we go in front of the DOR. It does require appropriation of town meeting action. So any funds spent from this account have to be voted by the residents at town meeting. So in particular, this year's increase is due to a combination of factors, including a higher beginning balance. So like I said, last year we had that 10.9 allocation. It's the beginning balance that we had from the previous year's free cash is already starting off at a higher number. And then our revenue came in specifically for local receipts higher than projected. So that's motor vehicle excise tax, investment income, and building permit fees. So building permits are not decreasing, look like they're increasing. For our investment income, we had an entire year of really good rates that we were able to invest all of our funds with. We also had a higher cash balance from both borrowing for the Hanlon School and then what we accrued on the investment income from that in FY23. So we're able to just build on all of that, as well as motor vehicle excise tax increases. So all these revenue streams are obviously variable, year to year. It depends on who buys cars, it depends on interest rates, it depends on who pulls building permits. So it's not like the tax revenue, which is a predictable year-to-year funding source. It can fluctuate. So for that reason, we always say that we budget very conservatively in that area. So all positive news, higher amount indication. I just want to stress this is not ongoing budget issues or any issues that come up. It's just that combination of increased over projected revenues and a higher starting balance. And that's all I have for that. Does anyone have any questions at all? And I can flip back between presentations or do whatever you need me to do.
Mary Ann, do you have any questions?
That was great, Stephanie. Thank you so much. I'm just curious with the change in the interest rate coming out of the Fed, how do you think that will impact us?
Yeah, so we were averaging for our returns between 4.3 and 4.5%. And obviously we sort of, Kathy Foley does a great job with shifting anything we can into higher earning accounts. But with the 0.5% interest rate decrease that just happened, I'm assuming these rates will obviously come down. I don't know again what will happen in November, but we've had some great years of high interest rates, and that might change in the upcoming year or so.
But Stephanie, it's also a combination of the cash on hand as we were going out to pay bills for the school. So it's a combination of what we had sitting in the accounts as well as the interest rate they were earning. And so I don't think either of those things are things that we should be looking for, happening on an ongoing basis.
Yes, correct,
to
Rob.
reduce rates even into 25.
Correct.
If you could go back I think it was 2 slides. Maybe come back one, two, this one here, where you talked about, I just want to clarify. So you've got a total used number of July 24 of just roughly $4.2 million, and the unallocated free cash target for our policies is 4.3. So, we're actually going to come in substantially higher than that 4.3. We'll probably be closer to 6 or more, right? When you take out what you're projecting. Actually, no, you're probably closer to 10, right?
Yeah, so we'll have unallocated, say we use, nothing else comes up and we just sort of use what we're anticipating plan use for FY26 in the budget process. We will have an unallocated balance of about $10 million. And for our financial policies, we should just be maintaining unallocated 4.3 million of that. So yes, that's correct.
So there's some definite benefit to us in terms of additional cushion should we need.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else, Rob?
All said, Joe.
Okay. Mary Ann?
All set. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Great job. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for the email today.
Of course.
Thank you. I think our next topic is regards conflict of interest. Pat, did you want to handle this?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Dan Bailey, who's been special town counsel on a number of projects for the town throughout the years, has been approached by the Charles River Realty Group, who has just recently purchased Lambert's Plaza. Lambert's Plaza, as you know, is actually a residential zone district, and it's the commercial use is grandfathered in. The new owners are looking to rezone the plaza and do some redevelopment. They've approached Dan. Dan has approached us to give him a waiver. He's currently not really involved in too much active matters for the town. I use one of his associates, Gareth, on some easements and some real estate, small real estate matters. But I would ask that the select board approve a conflict of interest waiver for Pierce Atwood and Dan Bailey and any attorney working under him in connection with the proposed zoning change at 220 Providence Highway. And I would ask that you further authorize the town administrator to sign the conflict of waiver letter that was in your package. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions. Mary Ann?
I do not. I think it seems reasonable.
Rob?
I agree.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion?
I will. I move that the select board approve a conflict of interest waiver to authorize Pierce Atwood LLP, Daniel Bailey, and any attorney working under Mr. Bailey's supervision to represent Charles River Realty Group and its affiliates in connection with the proposed rezoning and redevelopment of 220 Providence Highway. Further, I move to authorize the town administrator to sign the conflict of interest waiver letter and to forward said letter to Attorney Bailey.
I second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Call, Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Pat. Let me, liaison reports. I'll start with, nothing for aid to elderly. I'm gonna start with the, off-leash dog park. We did hold a meeting on 9/26. There was a consensus not to proceed with a, dog park, but instead to investigate trails for residents and dogs for exercise purposes. There's more work to be done on that, but that's where we stand at the moment. It was a good meeting. That's it for me. Mary Ann, do you have anything?
I do. I wanted to just briefly report on the Canton Street working group. We also met last week, and very well attended meeting where we discussed the current conceptual plan. And we announced that we are going to have a further meeting on October 7th at 7 p.m., which is going to be focused primarily on public comment. And due to Tish's help, today we were able to secure the Pine Hill School meeting space for that meeting. We have outgrown the library community room, so there is ample parking. I'm told there are about 160 spots for parking at the Pine Hill School. Again, that meeting will be posted for October 7th at 7 p.m. Also, I want to mention that folks should go to the Canton Street Working Group webpage on the town's website to access all of the materials from the working group and the videos from our meetings, including our meeting last week is on Westwood Media Center. So if folks were not able to attend last week, I encourage you to watch the meeting and then please come prepared with your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Rob, do you have any updates?
No updates at this time.
Terrific. Is there any other business that folks are aware of? Public and press have anything for this moment?
And we have the meeting minutes, Joe.
For the September 9th?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on the additions, deletions on the September 9th meeting minutes?
I had no changes.
None.
All right. Anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for September 9, 2024 meeting as written.
I second that motion.
Roll call. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Our next order of business is we're going into executive session. But before we do that, I want to announce that our next meeting will be October 21st, 6 p.m. via the web Zoom opportunity. Executive session. Select Board will be going into executive session to discuss two issues. One pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy to respect to potential litigation involving the property at 655 Clabbertree Street, and the second pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30, Section 22FG, to comply with any general laws for review of executive session minutes, both of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body if the discussion were to in open session. The board will not be returning. Could I have a motion to proceed into executive session?
So moved for the stated reasons.
And just for clarification, 665 Clabbertree, but yes, I second the motion to move to executive session.
Thank you, Rob. Mary Ann?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Rob, did I go 655? Clever
You did.
tree?
I just want to make sure that nobody thought there was something else coming to a different property. That's all.
Good night,
Well,
everyone.
Good night. Eyes are getting tired. Thank you all very much.